Good morning, Vande Matram. Welcome all of you. So this morning we are going to discuss a great topic, that is the role of surrender in Supramental Yoga. So the topic to be discussed on Supramental Yoga. So where we will specifically focus on the role of surrender. So this is a great morning, of course. It is we can find thunder, we can find lightnings, we can find tempest throughout. So there is hide and seek between light and shade. This morning we can focus upon, we can just imagine, and we can of course observe. But thing is very much simple, and it is quite familiar. We find on this great amid on this great turmoil, great disaster, we can find there is a ray of hope still there. Amid at least within 2 years we can find the pandemic, corona and all. So corona, dengue, black fungus, micromycosis, so many ways, alpha, beta, gamma, delta, various mutants we have seen by the passage of time from corona. Anyway, there is a little bit of hope, and this is the only hope with the Supramental Yoga. There is no other go. So here we are performing this integral yoga. We are the pursuer. We must know the Supramental Yoga first, and of course the role of surrender. There is absolutely no way. Initially I want to quote a very single line on Supramental Yoga. Sri Aurobindo quotes on Supramental Yoga. It is at once an ascent towards God and descent of Godhead into the embodied being. That is what the purpose and this is the characteristic and the speciality of this Supramental Yoga. The Supramental Yoga is at once an ascent towards the God and descent of Godhead into the embodied nature. Again, Mother quotes why this surrender is absolutely necessary, because the road is long and every inch of ground has to be won against much more resistance, because it is not that much easier, so called as per your calculation everything can go. Thou shalt found thyself in thy anguish, and the demons are furious on the path, and the gods are unwilling above thee. So these are the very of course optimistic lines, of course encouraging lines, but actually to some extent we get discouraged. Things how it will be done, because there is nothing to worry, because as the mother and the master are there, they are leading us, they are inside us, the guiding light is there in us. We are moved by their force, they are actually leading us from the very front, and leading us not to any a couple of 1,000 kilometers, but actually towards the end, to meet us, to make the to give us our divinity, to reach us, make us reach at the divinity's height. Anyway, for that only one thing can be done, that is the surrender. Without surrender, the another two ways of course we have seen, path of the surrender and path of our tapasya. But tapasya is difficult, and it has got risk. It is depends upon your own capability, efficiency. Once it is falters on somewhere on the way, then it is gone. So naturally there is the only way which we can rely upon, that is the path of the surrender. So surrender, what you have, what you gain, what you think, what you are, everything must be given, surrendered at the with the divine. That is what the point of discussion right now. Anyway, we are going to discuss something in this we have already started. So that is the role of surrender in integral yoga. In the very first lines here in the course, the first word of the Supramental Yoga is surrender. Of course, it is also the last word. So the first word of the Supramental Yoga is surrender, and the last word is also surrender. So it begins from surrender, it ends in surrender. Otherwise, like Chandrayaan 2, it will have the landing will be there, but actually somewhere, see, it is a tedious journey, it is a expensive journey, it is a burdensome journey. Anyway, you have fulfilled, and this soft landing is there. Instead of getting soft landing, there was a hard landing. Some mechanical trouble occurred in the of course robot, so that it was not possible to get to fulfill the ambition. That was the criteria, that was the problem with us. So here in the course, the last word also the surrender is surrender. So it is by a will to give oneself to the eternal divine. That is what being already we have discussed. That is what the point of surrender right now. It is by the will to give oneself to the eternal divine. To the eternal divine, to it is the will to give oneself to the eternal divine for lifting into the divine consciousness. So that was the point of discussion. A little few seconds later before we were discussing. So to give oneself to the eternal divine, first condition. For what? For lifting into the divine consciousness. Purpose is for preparation, for transformation, that the yoga begins. That so we have to give, we have to surrender near the will of the divine, and he has to lift it into the divine consciousness. For what? For preparation and transformation, that this with this the yoga begins. This is the characteristic of the supramental yoga, and it is the entire giving that is it culminates. For it is only when the self-giving is complete. That is what? Self-giving. Nothing has to be restrained, nothing has to be pressurized. So self-giving as it is complete, so there comes the finally the yoga. So it starts with the surrender, ends with the surrender, and finally the purpose is the self-giving. So if the once the self-giving is complete, then comes the finality of the yoga. So once this process of self surrender is complete, then comes the finality of the yoga, the entire taking up into the supramental divine, the entire taking up into the supramental divine, the perfection of the being, the transformation of the nature. Once the self-giving is complete, many things will occur one by one. Once the self-giving is complete, there comes finality of the yoga, number one. The entire taking up into the supramental divine, number two. Number three, the perfection of the being, and finally number four, transformation of the nature. Just imagine how the surrender and self-giving, self-consecration, it actually works. Again, Sri Aurobindo, there was a mother course. I don't know all that is all what your yoga is. So where the question of doing yoga, that is the your mother course, what you really are doing. I don't even have any idea about yoga, and I also don't know what to do about it. So about this, there is a little bit clarification. Sri Aurobindo clarifies. There are two ways of doing the yoga: one by knowledge and the second by one of effort. Already little in the beginning we have discussed one by knowledge and one by one effort. One's own effort. This is done by its own efficiency, one efficacy, and one by its one knowledge and one effort. The other by reliance on the mother. That is the second thing. In the last way, one has to offer one's mind and heart and all to the mother. That is the second part and the surrender part. For her force to work on it. Call her in all difficulties. Whenever there is some difficulties are coming, mother must be called on. Call the mother, and have faith and bhakti. That is what the requirement. Mother course here in the course. At first, it takes time, very difficult, it takes time, often a long time for the consciousness to be prepared in this way. The time is required is maybe that the process is long, and during that time, many difficulties may come up. Long period, difficulties will come, not one or two, many. But if one perseveres, a time comes when all is ready, the mother's force comes, opens the consciousness. So it is a maybe a delayed process. It will take long time, but once the things are getting materialized, getting systematized, then mother's force opens the consciousness fully to the divine. Then all the most then all that must develop within develops within, spiritual experience comes, and with it the knowledge and the union with the divine also comes. So here it is there, two ways of two processes, two ways to do it. One is tapasya and the second is surrender. But once this surrender, tapasya is actually, it is a difficult process. Depends upon your own knowledge and your own efforts. Second case, mother's force which will come, there won't be any difficulties. You must have the faith and bhakti, and for that actually it may take long time. You must persevere, you must have infinite patience, then only things when get harmonized, and your perseverance and of course your patience is there, and your preparation is up to a point, then mother's force opens the consciousness fully to the divine. Then all that must develops within, spiritual experience comes, then the knowledge and the union with the divine, that is started. Again, Sri Aurobindo is having a beautiful observation on this yoga. He actually categorically speaks, spiritual symbol is only a meaningless ticket unless thing symbolized is realized this, unless otherwise this realization is there, and only perfect and fuller realization is there, the spiritual symbol is only a meaningless ticket. Against your in the course, the contact of the human and individual consciousness with the divine, that is what the yoga process of yoga, the contact of the human and individual consciousness, it must be united with the divine with the divine. Contact of the human and individual consciousness with the divine, that is the very essence of yoga. It is very fact, very clear cut manner Sri Aurobindo tries to explain. Yoga is the union of that which becomes separated in the play of the universe with its own true self and origin and the universality. Originally the selves, the things, the beings, it was separated from the original being. In the process of yoga, everything has to be united with the original, and this great union is known as yoga. So again Sri Aurobindo goes another step forward, next step forward, very interestingly. The secret of success in yoga is to regard it not as one of the aim of the to be pursued, but the whole aim of life. Very characteristically, sometimes we feel we have given, we have gone, we have seen, we have gone to Pondicherry, we have sat in meditation, that is not enough. That is not a, it is not a single day process or single time endeavor. The secret of success in yoga is to regard is not as one of the aims to be pursued in life. One of the aims to be pursued is in the life, that is not the clear thing, but as the whole of life to be in contact, and it has to be pursued, and it has to be endeavored. He who seeks the divine must consecrate himself to God and God only. He who seeks the divine, naturally very difficult, because only in the people who are doing the sadhana, pursuing the integral yogic method path, the divine is all for him. So with the divine, for the spiritual seeker, the divine comes first, everything comes secondary. So primary thing is to seek the divine, and he who seeks the divine must consecrate himself to God, and to God only. There is no other object, nothing only. Again Sri Aurobindo go to another from the another angle, of course. Sri Aurobindo defines all yoga in its nature is a new birth. Just imagine, all yoga in its nature is a new birth. New birth means this world and this principle, this it's a shadow, must not be there, because soul is going on a very different path. So in yoga, all yoga in its nature is a new birth. It is a birth out of ordinary, the mentalized material life of man into a higher spiritual consciousness and a greater and a diviner being. So still we habit of the human being have to to stay more in the old. They are not prepared to accept the new principles, the new theory, or new developments in life. That is the criteria. So Sri Mother, of course Sri Aurobindo categorically explains and re-explains All yoga in its nature is a new birth, and it is birth out of the ordinary, the materialized material life, mentalized material life of a man. This is the ordinary life what people are staying out of the ordinary, the material, mentalized material life of man into the higher spiritual consciousness, into a higher spiritual consciousness and a greater and a diviner being. Up to this higher spiritual consciousness and a greater and a diviner being, up to this ordinary mentalized material life of man must be elevated. That is what the purpose of yoga. So again, Sri Aurobindo again quotes, what we seem to be a thinking human animal. What we seem to be a thinking human animal, where what we are and have to become to is God, because we are in a transitory being, more animal, less the divine God. So what we have to become the God, the secret purpose of our existence here is to find the occult reality of ourselves. This is what more and within the confines of more animality really we are staying. From there we have to get elevated, and the second thing we have to become and again our godhead, so godliness. Again, the secret of find the occult reality of ourselves. That's what we have to find, and the world, and to become the divine. The purpose, we have to leave behind the animality. We have to find the godliness. Again, the secret purpose of our existence is to it is actually multi-angular. Find the occult reality of ourselves, number two, the ourselves and the world, and to become the divine. That is what the purpose of our secret purpose of our taking birth. There is only one solution for falsehood. There is only one solution for the falsehood. It is to cure ourselves all that contradicts our consciousness in the presence of the divine. That is a great message as messaged by Mother. There is only one solution to the falsehood. Already we know the world is packed with falsehood. Everywhere you know there is rain of falsehood. It is to cure in ourselves all that contradicts. It is to cure in ourselves all that contradicts in our consciousness the presence of the divine. The presence of the divine and consciousness in consciousness actually, which contradicts in our consciousness the presence of the divine, that must be cured. So this obstacle and this must be thrown out. That is what the reason. It is the only one solution of also. Sin belongs to the world and not to the yoga. Many times we feel sin, virtue, so many ways we discuss, we contradict, we many way we argue, of course. But here Mother clarifies, sin belongs to the world and not to the yoga. Here in yoga there is no place for yoga sin, because it has to be elevated, it has to be transformed, it has to be changed. Again Mother quotes, for the Supreme Lord sin does not exist, because that spark of the Supreme Lord, it is there within, so within us, so there is no sin like this. All defect can be effaced. All defect, whatever you can consider and you tell as the see as the sin, all defect can be effaced by sincere aspiration and by transformation. Two things are necessary. One, actually Mother told that way, for the Supreme Lord sin does not exist. If something you feel that is something like sin like, so this defect can be effaced by two methods. One is by sincere aspiration, second by transformation. And towards the final probability we go, the difficulties that come are ordeals and the tests. The difficulties, most of the time it comes, and these come at the ordeals and the tests, and if one meets them in the right spirit, if one meets them with the right spirit, these difficulties, one comes out of the stronger and spiritually purer and greater. So these ordeals will come, these tests are coming, it is for your progress. So if one comes out, meets them with the right spirit, number one, if the one meets them with the right spirit, second, comes out stronger and spiritually purer and greater. So thing is that difficulties and tests and ordeals will come, so you have to meet them with right spirit. Then only if it is met with the right spirit, then someone that the one comes stronger and spiritually purer and greater. Again, finally, Sri Aurobindo quotes beautifully: yoga means a plunge into the multiple profundities of the soul, not belonging to any mind, life, or body. So, yoga means a plunge into the multiple profundities of the lives. So, beautifully, Sri Aurobindo has quoted this yoga, what we feel and what we think. That is actually, truly speaking, it is the union with the divine. So, again, Mother Sri Aurobindo quotes that it is the object of my yoga to transform life by bringing down into it the light, power, and the bliss of the divine truth. That is the final aim. Only initial aim, it is there. It is the initial aim. It is the object of my yoga to transform life by bringing down, transform the life. The process is by bringing into it light, power, and the bliss of the divine truth. This is the initial aim, first aim, and the final aim is to create a divine life on the earth and in the earthly existence. So, for that only, the Sri Aurobindo quotes, he wanted the life to be a flame discovery of the God, his world, the world to manifest the unveiled divine. So again, Sri Aurobindo says, we are here to do the divine will, what the divine wills, and to create a world in which the divine will can manifest truth. Our yoga is not for our own sake, but for the sake of the divine. Again, Sri Aurobindo quotes, it is not for ourselves, it is for the entire world, for the sake of the divine. The object of the yoga, Sri Aurobindo clarifies, to love the divine for the divine sake alone. To love the divine for the divine sake alone, to be turned to the nature into the nature of the divine, second, and our will and works and life to be the instrument of the divine. So again, it is the very beautifully, finally, Sri Aurobindo quotes what really this divine is meant. Many times we keep asking questions, what really, and but some of you may ask, Sri Aurobindo clarifies, what or who is the divine? Sri Aurobindo, like all the ancient sages of India, tells us behind the appearance of the universe there is a reality. This concept is clearly defined by the master. There is the appearance of the universe. Behind the appearance of the universe there is a reality, a self of all things, one and eternal. This is the divine. So all beings are united in one self and the spirit, but the ignorant of their true self of reality because of the veil of the separation. They know, but actually they have forgotten because of this veil of this separation in the nature. By yoga, this veil will be lifted up. By yoga, this veil can be removed, and man can become aware of his true self, the divinity within us and all things. So yoga, the process of yoga, it is necessary to know these things, to be able to be aware of these things. Only thing can be done, that is really the truly, it is the requirement is that the surrender, the first thing, and surrender is also the last word. For the supramental yoga, it starts with surrender, and of course the final word is surrender. Vande Mataram.